Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of CookieCast. Today on CookieCast, it's the football podcast. We're a man down, I'm afraid, but we always manage. At least I think we do. We bring you all the football news, reviews of games, previews of games, transfer news as it is at the moment, and everything in between. Before we start, please do consider like, share, subscribe and comment. Leave a review where you can leave a review. Obviously, the biggest one is share the podcast around. If you're a football fan, maybe this podcast is for you. And if it's for you, maybe it's also for someone else. Right, let's get started. Here we go. This is CookieCast, the football podcast.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to us here at the CookieCast Podcast Network, bringing you your weekly update of football-based nonsense. Yes, that's correct. Whilst you may be looking on the YouTubes and only see 3 happy, smiling faces on your screen, it's not the NFL football just yet. That will be out probably around the same time this one drops. But that's neither here nor there. Yes, tonight's fix is one man shy on the football podcast. Mr. Moore unable to join us this evening, so it's just myself, Mr. Cook, and Mr. Woodmansey flying 3 low. Is that a word?
Just don't call it a threesome, Paul, and we're good.
Well, we'll see. Listen, who knows what might happen if we have a couple of adult beverages.
Oh, like Guinness with iron brew in it, you mean? Pal?
Yeah, Guinness with iron brew, a steaming hot cup of tea. I mean, it's about to get wild, ladies and gentlemen, I can tell you something.
Don't know what you mean.
So, no Mr. Moore, but we will still strive to cover as much of the Forest stuff as we can. But we won't start with Forest. We'll start with a trip to the Den that was taken by Hull City. They went into this off the back of a defeat. Yes, it was the cup. Of course it was.
Penalties defeat. I mean, technically it was a draw, but
good point. Good point. Well made. Technically it's a draw. We'll say they drew against Doncaster. But how did they get on against Millwall? Is what all the people want to know, Stuart.
Well, Hull took the trip. I didn't take the trip. Although the owner did lay on free travel for this one, which was very generous of him to pay for all of those people to get down to London for a 12:30 kickoff to a shithole nobody wants to go to in fear of getting stabbed, which many may say is a little bit like coming to Hull. Anyway, Millwall started their day by selling Romain Esse to Crystal Palace, despite them clearly hearing my prediction last week. You set of bastards. So that was me onto a loser right from the off. Palace, just saying, if you're listening to this, you owe me at least a point. Carl Rushworth, more on him later, made his league debut, and he hardly had anything to do. After 9 minutes, João Pedro put Kamara through on goal. I think Kamara was possibly waiting for the train back to take his shot. Yeah, it took a very long time about it until the point where the keeper pretty much just smothered it at his feet. It was bizarre, that one, especially on off the back of his recent goal scoring antics. Possibly even worse than that, from my point of view anyway. Louis Coyle off injured after 24 minutes. I don't know if you saw any of this.
Yeah.
It was a bit of a 50-50 tackle. The kid who did it to him effectively knew what he was doing, in my opinion, and just absolutely just done him.
At the time, it looked like he just overran the ball, but I haven't seen it back because obviously with it being on the Sky Plus channel, I don't really think they showed it too many times. But yeah, it wasn't the best challenge, shall we say?
Louis was more than happy to share some photographs on Instagram. from his little stop off at the hospital, where he had 2 huge gashes in his calf. Didn't look good. Looks like he's going to be out for a little while at least. I did actually see him in person on Monday night. Obviously, not to talk to, but he was hobbling around somewhat and not kicking a football. And he didn't, spoiler alert, didn't feature in the QPR game last night. I think it'll be a few weeks. It's going to be, looking at the injury, there's got to be some stitches or some gluing involved. So it's probably going to be a little bit of a while before that knits back
I was going to
together.
say, do you reckon it's a case of it's not even technically like an injury that's keeping him out? It's the possibility of like infection or something like that potentially.
From how he was walking on Monday, bear in mind it was only 2 days after the event. It was ginger, shall we say? Every footstep. I didn't say it, Paul. You did. YouTube viewers. Paul's just shocked himself.
Technically, I didn't say anything.
Yeah, but you've shocked yourself on YouTube, so we're all good. Save me a job. Anyway, my personal view with it is that people slate Louis Coyle. They say that he's lost a yard, whatever else, but he's the club captain, and quite often for me, if he has a bad game or doesn't play, the team doesn't particularly function all that well either. But again, more on that later. Anyway, this game did continue. Cody Dramé with the shiny shoes, he beat on. And it was scrappy for the rest of the first half. However, into the second half, Hull did go 1-0 up on 58 minutes. A bit of a driving run by Regan Slater down the left-hand side. Played a 1-2 with Kamara, and then drove the ball low and hard across the 6-yard box. Pinged off 2 players. Neither of them were Hull players. It was deflected in by Cooper for an own goal. The best part about this, aside from the fact that we went 1-0 up, was João Pedro running off like he'd scored an absolute fucking worldie. And he was at least 5 metres from the last person to touch the ball.
I absolutely love that level of shithousing when you are nowhere near the ball and yet you are like, yeah.
But it was then doubled down on by the fact that the rest of the Hull City players went off to Slater to celebrate. And he was stood there on his own for like 10-15 seconds before he realised, yeah, I'm definitely not getting this one, lads. I'll come and join in. So yeah, 1-0 up. Again, not much really happened after that. I know this isn't a glowing match report, but if there's nothing happening, there's not really a lot to say. The only thing that did finish the game was the fact that the Millwall fans booed their own team off the pitch. I mean, everybody enjoys that when it's a team that nobody else likes. So yeah, a 1-0 away win.
I can't possibly think what you're getting at there. Everyone loves those cheeky little scamps from the den. Yes, a very much well needed 3 points for the Tigers. Not really a result anyone saw happening on the podcast. It seems though for the second week running we had a consensus score off across the board. We all went for a 1-1 draw. And of course, none of us in our right minds was picking an own goal as the goal. So
not
0 points.
Not even half a point if you picked Pedro.
No. So Matt will be disappointed to hear that he didn't get half a point for that non-effort from João Pedro.
Annoyingly, I had Slater, and technically, he still didn't score.
True. Yeah, but in the book, next to the essay pick that you put, I've just put brackets, lol.
You could have put that for the second as well, really, couldn't you, for Slater trying to score?
Very true. So, 1 game down, 0 points across the board. Our second game was also on Saturday and took place on the south coast. And Portsmouth were taking on Borough. It looks as though Borough started this one the brighter of the two. Although must say at this point before we start on the actual game, I believe the game started, and within 2, maybe 3 minutes of the game starting, it had to be halted due to a medical emergency in one of the stands. And unfortunately, the gentleman in question sadly passed away from it. So pretty horrendous, to be honest with you, that obviously a guy's gone to the football, had a heart attack or whatever it is that's just befelled him, and he hasn't made it back. So awful sort of happening, and it kind of made the game a bit sort of irrelevant. Obviously, at the time we didn't notice because the news didn't come out that the guy had passed away until after the game had finished. But Borough did start the better of the two. Played the ball around the sort of the edge of the box. Bergzorg, I think, had an effort that sort of seemed to get blocked by someone. It was one of those balls where it just sort of like rolls away to sort of a bit of a no man's land, and the person that was quickest onto the ball seemed to be Latte Lath, who was arriving from what felt like the centre circle, and I couldn't really work out why he was there, why he would have been up in the attack. But he had an effort that the keeper managed to sort of get down well to smother away. But after 30 minutes, they did actually take the lead. Some neat play down the left-hand side, again from Bergzorg. He managed to turn the defender and sort of release himself down the left wing. He must have carried the ball for a good 30 or 40 yards before he spotted that Latte Lath had peeled off to the left-hand side of the box. So he played the ball into Latte Lath, who rounded the keeper, stuck him on the floor, and just rolled it into the back of the net in front of the travelling 2,000 to 3,000 very, very happy Borough fans to make it 1-0 to the Borough. That's how it stayed until half-time, and then into the second half, on the 54th minute, Portsmouth got their, what at the time felt like, inevitable equaliser. Matt Ritchie, the ball was clipped over the top by Potts, which sent Ritchie, who sort of made like a curved run to the left-hand side of the box. Took the ball in his stride and just finished under the keeper, who came out sprawling and just stuck it under the keeper into the opposite corner to make it 1-1. And almost inevitably, 1-1 became 2-1 on the 82nd minute when Ritchie again found himself as the goal scorer. He'd almost added a second a couple of minutes earlier from a free kick from about 30 yards out, which he just sent over the bar. But his second and the eventual game winner, a ball was played out from Lang from the centre circle, just into the path of Ritchie, who was able to run onto it. He got squared up with a left back Engel, shifted the ball onto his right foot and just smashed it in off the post to make it 2-1. The absolute Twitter meltdown was, even from Borough fans' perspective, over the top on this one. The classic situation of Carrick needs to go, Gibson needs to sell up. Carrick hasn't got a clue what he's doing. We'll never get promoted with these lot. They're all useless. Latte Lath just needs to go. He's shit. I mean, he scored the only goal of the game from Borough's perspective. But what are you going to do? So yeah, 2-1 Portsmouth win, and it's not looking good, lads. No one had a Portsmouth win on the predictions. Only one of us had a Portsmouth goal scorer, and that was me. I went 2-1, and I went the wrong way. I went for Bishop, Azaz, and McGree. I think McGree seems to be out with an undisclosed injury at the moment for some strange reason. So potential that he might come back in for this weekend's game. Not
He's been in and out of the side a bit though, because I'm sure when you guys beat us like last month, I'm sure he'd only just come back from something then, because he came on as a sub.
I think honestly, he went to the World Cup, and I don't think he's been fully fit since. And the World Cup was what, 18 months, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, nearly. Worrying would be my sort of main opinion on it as it stands, because on his day, he's comfortably one of the best players in the squad. When are we going to get his day is the problem if he's always injured. will be my main concern. The only person who picks up any points from this is Andy, who had Lattilaf and Bergzorg to score for the Borough. So after 2 games, Andy finds himself 1-0 up. Our third game of the week is the Nottingham Forest game. Now, unfortunately, I did not see this particular game, but I believe Mr. Moore may have provided some predictions. Oh no, he's just given me predictions. There was a possibility that he may be sending through some details of this game, but Forest won this one 3-2. Anderson got his first goal for the club on the 11th minute. Hudson-Odoi made it 2 on the 28th minute, and Wood made it pretty much game over on the 41st minute. So they were 3-0 up going into half-time. Bednarek got a goal back for Southampton on the 60th minute. I believe just sometime after that, Milinkovic had a goal chalked off for what apparently no one can work out why. Fantasy football owners included. Annoying. And Southampton made it a nervy last few minutes. And in the 91st minute or the 90 plus 1 minutes, Onuachu scored for Southampton to make it 3-2 and give Forest fans a little bit of a nervy last few moments. The upshot of this is that everyone gets points. Happy days. Everyone had a Forest win. Stuart gone 2-0 with Gibbs White and Ilanga to score, so Stu sadly only gets 1 point. Andy had gone 2-0 with Wood and Gibbs White to score, so he gets himself 2 points. Matt had gone 3-1. Wood, Anderson and Awonyi to score for Forest. Archer with the Southampton goal, so gets himself 3 points. And I had 3-0 Forest. Wood, Ilanga and Hudson-Odoi. So I get myself 3 points as well. So, after 3 games, 3 points for me, 3 points for Matt, 3 points for Andy. Stu, still just with the 1 solitary point, sadly. Our 4th game of the week takes us back to Humberside, where Hull were taking on Queen's Park Rangers. Now, you weren't there for the Millwall game, but you were there for this one.
Indeed. And thankfully, it wasn't as cold as people thought. That's the best thing I can tell you about the first half, because the first half was possibly the worst half of football I have seen live in at least 10 years. It was not great. If you want to look up some of the reports of the game, I'm particularly looking at you, Sky Sports. I think they've wrote more than 5 words, less than 50 on the entire first half. It was that good. Hull, having said that, Hull did start okay. Vaughan and Alzate had some half chances from sort of the edge of the area. Keeper saved one. One of them was just dragged slightly wide. So we moved into half time, 0-0. I should say actually that a couple of the new signings were in amongst the team, or on, at least on the bench. Geldhart making his first start after joining on loan from Andy's favourite neck of the woods, and he missed a header early in the second half, which looked easier to score than it did to put it into the bit of the stand that he did. It won't surprise any of the regular listeners to know that just before that had occurred, Regan Slater missed the goal. Again, this is becoming a thing, Regan.
I thought his party piece was hitting the target. Unfortunately, it was one of the post or bar.
Well, his party piece used to be ripping the top of the fucking net off, but he seems to have forgotten how to do that. It's unfortunate. If you watch his goals from last season, it was every single goal he scored was top bins smashed the shit out of it. This season, it's just get in the bin as opposed to top bins, unfortunately. Anyway, he did another miss. On 64 minutes, Alfie Jones did really well to block an initial shot, but unfortunately, he wasn't there to block the rebound as Kenneth Parle, brother of Shanna, I'm led to believe, was there to slot in a rebound. Saito then netted again 6 minutes later in what reports have called a moment of brilliance. I don't think those reporters were live watching the game, because if they were, they might have called it a moment of Cody Drama being absolutely fucking wank. And it was awful. I am very sweary this evening because I'm still cross about it. If you watch it back, this Saito runs down the left. He gets taken to the byline, not even quite in the penalty area, and Cody Drama's method of defending was to just plant his right foot in the ground while Saito ran past him. He did smash it into the net from a very tight angle. It looked a good finish, but Drame should have done so much better before that. Hull decided to actually maybe spring to life a little bit when they were already 2-0 down. And later on in the game, 84th minute, Geldhart was played in by Matt Crooks. Having seen Crooks now in person, you can see why his nickname is the Tree, because that guy is a giant man. He's big, and do you know what? For a guy of his size, he's got a reasonable lick of pace still about him. I was quite impressed. Anyway, Joe Geldart still had 2 defenders to hold off on the edge of the area, and then tried a cheeky lob. Keeper was off his line, and it nestled perfectly into the net. So that made it 2-1. City were trying for the next pretty much 10 minutes, including injury time. But unfortunately, it wasn't to be. So the game did finish in a 1-2 defeat. Two final things to note from this game. Firstly, the refereeing standard in the Championship, again, not the first time I've mentioned it, is currently woeful. And this isn't sour grapes because we lost. It's the lack of consistency that is really starting to irritate me, because similar fouls that were being committed by Hull and being given were not being given the other way. As soon as QPR are possibly one of the most handsy teams I've ever seen. I know you're always going to get a bit of a push when like people going up for a header or whatever else, but it was almost every challenge. There was one point in the first half where Harry Vaughan came up against one of their centre halves. Now, I don't know what the centre half was called. He was also a giant man. If you've seen Harry Vaughan, he is a tiny man because he is still a teenager, and he almost looks like he's come straight out of the under-15s. But he's quick with his feet, and he earns his place in the side, is what I would say. One of the tackles in the first half, which wasn't given as a foul, was the giant centre half putting the palm of his hand on the throat of Harry Vaughan and pushing him to the ground. But apparently that's not a foul. Second half, Harry Vaughan ran around a player, took the ball off him. The player then falls to the ground, seemingly in delay. Apparently that's not allowed. So that was a foul, apparently. Anyway, that's it's irritating. The second thing to note is the current state of our pitch, or lack of it, would probably be. They paid a lot of money in summer to have the entire thing relaid. The brand new pitch did not quite get 2 weeks rest before they were playing rugby on it. Pitch has not bedded in since. They're constantly playing catch up. I don't think it's anything to do with the ground staff. I think it is purely just circumstance, and they're constantly playing catch up. My friend who I go to the football with is a greenkeeper by trade, so knows a little bit about it. And for the quiet patches of the game last night, so yeah, the first half, if you'd have listened to the conversation on our row, it was pretty much like Gardener's World. It's not looking good. I feel sorry for the ground staff playing catch up. They've got the lights, they've got the seed that they're putting on it constantly that's already been partially germinated to like get it going as quick as they can. But it was described on the radio on the way home last night as the carpet that you had in your student digs, but had already been there for 10 years before you even got there. That's how threadbare it's looking currently. It's not conducive to good football. it chops up a lot. So even the mud that's left, it makes the pitch bobbly. At some point, it's going to cost somebody a goal, or worse, possibly an injury, because it's not looking great. But yeah, my 2 grumbles are done now. You can carry on with the points. Sorry, Paul.
No, not at all. I must admit, I did think the pitch looked particularly bad on the Sky coverage last night.
But you wonder why our home form's so bad. That's got to be a contributing factor.
Yeah, absolutely. It doesn't get much better from a points perspective, as everyone had varying degrees of Hull win. We had 3 2-1s, and Andy had a 1-0 Kamara. So no points for Andy. I had a 2-1 Slater, Kamara, and Chair. No points for me. Stuart and Matt do get themselves a bonus point, as they did have Gelhardt to score. Sadly, no one predicted any QPR goal scorers correctly. So that just leaves us with the final game of last week, which was Middlesbrough versus West Bromwich Albion. But because that is a big deal in this house, we'll momentarily step away, take a small break, and then I'll come back at you with all the goings on at the Riverside. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back. And just like that, we are back. So we had one game left to cover, and it was indeed the Williams Derby, as it's known in this here neck of the woods. It was Middlesbrough versus West Bromwich Albion, and this one came with a little bit of extra spice because West Bromwich Albion's new manager is their old manager, who also happened to be Middlesbrough's old manager, Tony Mowbray, back in the dugout. One of those odd situations where both sets of supporters giving out like standing ovations, giving out rapturous applause, and rightly so. This guy is a bona fide Borough club legend. He was the captain when the club almost folded back in 1986. Led him to promotion that season. I think they actually got promoted again with him in the team. Slightly later on in the 1980s, and then he obviously was sold to Celtic, and then came back to have his spell as the manager after he'd been at West Brom as a manager. Never really got any money to spend, so he was a bit shafted in that regard. But nevertheless, played some decent stuff, and probably wouldn't turn it down if Borough need to find a manager in the future and he's available. Wouldn't put it past him giving the job to Mowbray again. So this was Mowbray's first game in charge of West Brom since he's retaken the reins, and they couldn't really have performed much worse, if I'm being honest. They were very much not at the races on this one. Can't remember them having too many efforts where they worked the keeper. Disappointing would be my takeaway if I was a West Brom fan. The game was a bit stale at first. Needed something to sort of like kick it into gear, and on the 29th minute, it got just that. Neto Borges won the ball back in the left back spot, carried it down the left hand side. He checked back onto his right foot and then saw that Hayden Hackney was free in a lot of space, about 35 yards out. Passed the ball off to Hackney, who took a touch, got it out of his feet, and had a shot on target from about between 25 and 35 yards, 25 and 30 yards out. On Sky Sports, Jamie Mackey was quite adamant that this was a goalkeeping error. But if you watch the shot back, it's just a great strike by Hackney. He sort of cuts across the ball, and the keeper dives for it, but gets kind of nowhere near it, and it just flashes straight into the back of the net from, like I said, 25, 30 yards out. Very, very nice finish. It stayed that way till half time, and then obviously West Brom started making changes, trying to get back into the game. There was a period where they started piling the pressure on. At the start of the second half, they had a couple of chances where the keeper was forced into a couple of saves. They had a slew of corners where they maybe had 3 or 4 corners in a row, but never really did anything too much that made it look like they were going to get an equaliser. And on the 83rd minute, the contest was settled when Latte broke with the ball through the middle of the park. He spotted that Ben Doak had peeled off to the right-hand side. Again, led the ball into Doak's path. He took a touch to get it onto his left foot, and then just bent the ball beautifully into the top corner around the despairing dive of the goalkeeper to make it 2-0 and give all 3 points to the Borough. Not a result a lot of Borough fans saw coming, as they were in pretty terrible form going into this, but nevertheless, a goal and a result that puts Borough back on track and gets them back into the playoff spots at the expense of West Brom, no less. So 2-0 Borough. Predictions-wise, Stuart gone for a 1-0 West Bromwich Albion win. Carl and Grant to score. No points. Matt had gone with a 2-2 draw. Barlasser, Azaz, Diangana and Grant. No points there. I went with a 1-1 draw, so I was just as optimistic as everybody else. Mowat to score for West Brom. Doak to score for the Borough, so I get myself a bonus point there. But he's done it again, ladies and gentlemen. Mystic Cook comes to town, 2-0 Middlesbrough win. Sadly, neither of the goal scorers predicted, as Azaz and Hamilton were not on target. Hamilton, not even on the pitch, so slightly difficult for him to score when he doesn't get a game. But what that does for the week, Stu ends with 2 points from 5 games. Myself and Mr. Moore, 4 points from 5 games. But winning the week with 5 points from 5 games, it is Mr. Andrew Cook. Well done to you, sir. So that's week 21, done and dusted. As stated the past couple of weeks, we are in the midst of the January transfer window. Now, from my perspective, no confirmed incomings as of yet for the Borough. I'm just trying to work out if there's any confirmed outgoings since we last recorded. I do not believe there is, but I will just double check. Whilst I'm double checking that, I will just go through the Forest. Are in a similar position. They have had no incomings, no outgoings. They've reportedly placed bids for players. Johan Visser of Brentford is one, but Brentford fully expected to knock that particular bid back. Their main bit of business is the fact that Murillo has signed a new long-term contract with the club, which is very, very important, very needed, as he's very much a part of their success and should hopefully be there for many years to come moving forward. No ins or outs as it was at Borough. Technically, they have lost a player, as George Edmondson has had his loan cancelled by Ipswich. There were rumours doing the rounds that Borough were going to try and make his loan into a permanent in this particular window. I don't know if it's because the teams haven't been able to come to an agreement on a fee, but it would appear as though if that is the case, Ipswich have spat their dummy out and said, "Well, if you're not going to pay for him, you can't have him anymore," and they've recalled him from his loan. So he's gone back to Ipswich. He can go back out on loan to another team, or he can play for Ipswich, or he can come back on loan or sign permanently with the Borough. At the moment, all 3 options are still very much up in the air. It'll be a suck it and see, wait and see what happens sort of a situation. Borough have been linked with a number of players. The Ryan Giles thing isn't any more clear than it was last week.
I would say that's probably about to get somewhat clearer by the fact that he's not even been anywhere near a bench in the last week at our place.
Very telling, I would say.
Also,
yes.
Also, the fact that we've had a deal agreed for a left back, although that's still to go through. So he's on his way.
Yeah, I'll be very surprised if it doesn't go through at this point, even if it's just a loan to the end of the season with an obligation to buy at the end of the season just to get it through and get him off the books at Hull. And the Latte situation is still as murky as it ever was. There's no, I don't think there's any reported definite bid from Atlanta. It's still all paper talk and stuff at the moment. Apparently, the deal's been agreed or terms have been agreed, but he's played the last 2 games. He scored in one of them. He looks very much interesting to be there. So what's going on with that? Who knows? Who can tell? Which just leaves us with the busiest of all of us, and that is the Hull City boys.
I'm only covering official ones that have been done. Like I say, there are plenty of rumours at the moment. However, before the Millwall game, in fact, we had one signing through the door, and he did feature as a substitute. So Norden Amrabat has signed on a short-term deal until the end of the season. Now, you might be thinking, I know that surname. I, I know that bald-headed Moroccan guy. No, it's not that bald-headed Moroccan Amrabat. It's, in fact, his older brother. The way that they phrased it, I thought was very polite. That Hull City are delighted to announce the signing of vastly experienced winger Norden Amrabat. They then go on to tell you that he's 37 years old and has accumulated over 600 appearances during a distinguished 19-year career. His most recent club before us was AEK Athens. He won the league with them and his League and Cup double a couple of years back. Played over 100 matches there in 3.5 years. So he's got a bit of pedigree. He's played in the World Cup, amongst other things. So it's one of them. It feels very much like an international Billy Sharp signing to me in the respect of he's probably not looking to get a long-term deal. He's probably looking to right a few wrongs from his time with Watford, perhaps in the English League. Do you know what? I saw him come on in the Millwall game. He didn't look like a 37-year-old. He was still had a bit about him. The worst part about it is the fact that he's pretty much the same build as Joao Pedro. Also has a shiny bald head. Commentator got him mixed up for the entirety of the game, which was somewhat embarrassing for him. So that's one through the door, and then on Monday night, so the night before the QPR game, he wasn't registered in time to play in the QPR game, but we did get another signing through the door. So Kyle Joseph, he signed from Blackpool for an undisclosed fee. 23-year-old, plays up front. He's been top scorer for Blackpool this season. 8 goals so far, 66 appearances for Blackpool, and contributed 8 assists in 18 months at Bloomfield Road. So he plays for Scotland under 21s. He has played for Scotland under 21s. Obviously, he's 23 now. Probably won't allow that. But yeah, it feels like very much one, possibly for now, but also for the future as well, regardless of what division they end up in. The only outgoing, much like the one that Paul mentioned earlier, is a loan being cut short. So Carl Rushworth signed with a little bit of excitement because the goalkeeping position has been a little bit strange at Hull for the last couple of years. Expected him to be first choice keeper for his time. However, before the season even really got kicked off, he had a wrist injury, I believe, and hasn't played until the Doncaster Cup game, when he had a little bit of a run out. And then he played at Millwall. And then he played against QPR. So he's managed 2 league games and a cup game. And now, unfortunately for Hull, Brighton's Jason Steele has had to have some surgery. So they've recalled Rushworth. So he's finally got himself back fit at the expense of Hull. And now he's away back out the door again. So a bit disappointing, bad timing. However, I also do kind of feel that Pandor, as in Ivo Pandor, was a little bit hard done to in terms of losing his place, because he's not been terrible. So he's obviously going to get his cracking goal back again, but we'll see how that turns out.
Obviously, Rushworth, having played in the Cup, does now find himself cup-tied. So if Brighton were bringing him back with the thought of, it's all right, we'll give the first choice keeper the rest in the cup. I don't think you fucking will, lads.
Well, unless they're gonna Jason Steele, you happen to be injured. Are you all right just for like 90 minutes or maybe extra time and penalties against this lot? This is just one game. What you want about my hand hurts? Shut up.
Listen, broken legs heal really quick, Jason. You'll be absolutely fine. So. Anyway, we're only playing some terrible team from the northeast, so we'll strap you to the post. You'll be fine. I have no idea who Brighton have got. That was a joke at Borough's expense. I mean, it could be Newcastle. Fuck those guys. Right, so that's the transfer roundup done and dusted. So that just leaves us with the 3 games that are ahead of us in week 22. The first of which is a Friday night fixture and finds itself live on the Sky Telebox. Sheffield United, newly minted top of the league at time of recording. Sheffield United, no less, taking on Hull City. Obviously, it's Mr. Woodmansey's team, so he will give his prediction last. Just a quick question before we go into this: Would it be easy to say that you're potentially going into this with a little bit of trepidation?
I don't know what you mean. Plus, as well, let's not forget. Let's not forget they're not playing at Hull, so there's a positive.
Well, true. I believe that response might tell you all you need to know when it comes to his prediction. I have mine and Matt's predictions in the book. So, I'll go with Matt's prediction first. Matt has gone for a 3-1 home win for Sheffield United. He's gone for a goal each for Brewster, Hamer, and Brereton-Diaz. The 1 goal back for Hull, scored by Gelhardt. I've gone for a 2-0 Sheffield United home win. I've gone for Brewster and Brereton-Diaz. Listeners to the podcast will, of course, know my consternation with Mr. Brereton. Pause. Because that's his name. So we will be calling him what his name is. Andy, what have you got down for Sheffield United versus Hull City?
I've got a 1-1 draw. Some guy, Diaz, for Sheffield United. And I keep putting it down, but Badia for Hull.
Don't pick him. He wasn't even in the team.
Was he even in the squad?
Gotta have faith.
He's one that's on loan currently, and there's rumours about that being cut short. So watch this space.
Right. Do you want to keep it, Andy, or do you want to change it?
No, I've got faith.
He likes it. He's liked what he's seen, so he's gonna hammer that drum until he is no longer a Hull City player.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. Oh, I can't pick him anymore. Cool.
Go on, Stu. How many do you reckon they will lose by?
I've got us to lose by 1, but it's 2-1 to Sheffield United. I've got Hamer and Brewster, and I'd actually written this down before the game last night. But I've gone for Gelhardt, and from what I saw, I'll stand by it. He was everywhere on that pitch last night at the QPR game, and if that sort of effort continues, he's obviously got a bit between his teeth, so I can't see why he wouldn't at least make it, or even if he has to make it for himself, he'll at least get 1 chance in the game. You'd have thought.
You would have thought so. Did he start?
Yeah.
Fair enough. Fair play. Fair play. Our second game of the week sees Bournemouth taking on Nottingham Forest. Now, obviously, for those of you who have been listening to the podcast for a number of years, you'll remember this particular game is one that was postponed a few years ago as parts of Bournemouth Stadium were blowing away. So let's hope they've rectified those particular issues and that this game can go ahead if there's a little bit of wind. Because we wouldn't want that to happen to you, would we now, poor old Bournemouth? Oh no, there's been a little bit of wind. We can't play the game. Fuck off. Call yourself a Premier League team. Pathetic. Anyway, so it's Mr. Mo's team. He will give his prediction last. It's already in the book, but I'm going to leave it to last. I've gone for what appears to be a favourite Forest scoreline of 3-2. But I've gone for 3-2 to the Forest. So I've gone for a goal each for Semenyo and Kluivert, and then I'm going to go each for Forest of Wood, Elanga, and Gibbs White. Andy, what have you got down for Bournemouth versus Forest?
I've got 2-0 to the Forest. I'm borrowing a couple of your goal scorers. I've got Wood and Elanga to score.
Oh, he's got Wood, all right. Stu?
I don't think they'll. It's very close to yours, although that I don't think there'll be quite as many goals in the game. Probably because if it is windy, the distraction of the whistling through that Tin Pot Stadium will maybe put them off slightly. I've gone for Bournemouth 1, Forest 2. I've also got Semenyo to score for Bournemouth, and I've got Gibbs White and Wood. At this point in time, if you're predicting anybody to score for Forest and you're not at least putting one down for Wood, have you not actually been watching any Forest this season?
Well, there was a game the other week where they scored, and it wasn't him. So, but let's be honest, it doesn't happen that often. So, we had a 3-2 from me, a 2-1 from Stu, a 2-0 from Andy. Matt has also gone 3-2. But he's gone 3-2 to Bournemouth. He's gone for two. He's gone 2 for Kluivert and 1 for Semenyo, 1 for Wood and 1 for Gibbs White. I can only presume that he's been burned by this particular fixture before. So he's playing the odds, shall we say, and going for the Bournemouth win. Our final game of the week is also on Saturday, also at 3 p.m, so therefore not live on the Sky Telebox. But it sees Preston at North End versus Middlesbrough. Obviously, it's my team. I'll give my prediction last. Matt has gone for a 2-1 Middlesbrough win. So for a goal for Osmajic for Preston. And then he's had some sort of brain injury as he's gone for Engel, the backup left back, and Fours to score. So he's gone for the backup left back and the backup right winger to score in this game. I can only presume he's thinking there's going to be either some insane breaks or corners. I have no idea what's gone through Matt's head there, to be honest with you. Stu, what have you got now for Preston Borough?
It's the fact that you're playing Preston. He's probably thought, well, they'll treat it as a cup game. They'll have a few changes inside because Preston are absolutely shit. I can say that. I was there on Boxing Day when, that's right, we lost to them, and it was terrible. I've gone for Preston 0, Middlesbrough 2, with Azaz and Bergzorg. My God, is Azaz overdue by this time, surely?
Well...
Oh, no, Andy's pulling a face.
He scored on...
Oh, Andy! Sorry. Wait for it,
For those of you not watching on YouTube, for starters, you're missing out on some excellent faces by not watching on YouTube, let's be honest. But Andy thrust his book at the screen to show that he had Preston North End 0, Middlesbrough 2, with Azaz and Bergzorg as his goal scorers. Now, of the two, I would say that Bergzorg is probably more due than Azaz is. He's been playing really well in the last couple of weeks, Bergzorg. He set up the goal for Latelath against Portsmouth, which obviously came to nothing. And he also played. I felt like he played really well against West Brom midweek as well.
Also, he owes me 50 goals at this point of the season. So I probably could do to get one of them in at some point.
That is true.
If you could pass that on, that'd be great. Yeah,
I'll let him know. When I do my sort of press pass meeting with him and stuff like that. But yeah, it's almost as if he's playing out of position at the moment as well, because he's been asked to fill in on the left hand side because of obviously the issues with McGree. So he's kind of playing out of position because normally he'd be playing in behind the striker, but obviously Azaz is playing that well in that position at the moment that you can't really drop him. Although, if you were paying attention to any of the social medias, Azaz probably wouldn't even be at the club. So, but then again, the Borough fans are really educated and they know what they're talking about. Not at all. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Bergzorg does score in this one. My prediction is a 2-1 Middlesbrough win. I've gone for Tesla Hayden to score for Preston, and then he's back in the side. I've gone for Aidan Morris to score for the Borough, and I also have gone for Delano Bergzorg to get a goal. Like I say, I'm liking what I'm seeing at the moment. He's playing really well. He seems to be bringing players into the game more, which is obviously beneficial as he's playing off the left-hand side. But I fancy him to bag, and if the Latte-Lath transfer does go through and Borough don't get a replacement through the door, I'd be very surprised if that was the case. But if they don't, I would expect to see much, much more of him as the central striker. Let's be honest. So that brings us to the end of this week's predictions, ladies and gentlemen. Is there anything else anyone would like to bring to the table? No, just the one bit of news then from me. Obviously, there was the sad news of the Portsmouth fan who had passed away at the start of the Middlesbrough game. And there was another death in the football family. Dennis Law passed away over the course of the weekend. He was the last remaining sort of survivor of I believe they call him the Holy Trinity at Man United. Obviously, Best, George Best, Bobby Charlton, and Dennis Law. All three won the European Cup and the Ballon d'Or with Man United in the space of a few years of each other. I don't know if it's that they're the only three to win the Ballon d'Or whilst playing both with the same team and in the same country or something like that. But
he's definitely the only Scotsman, I believe, to ever win it.
Yeah, I think that is correct. Unless Kenny Dalglish won it at some point, but I don't think he did. And would it be so easy to say that can't really see a Scotsman winning it anytime soon?
I mean, Andy Robertson will tell you otherwise, obviously.
or Ben Doak. He's only 18. But yeah, Dennis Law was obviously way before my sort of time of watching football. But just another one of those guys that my dad used to sort of go on about him all the time in the same way that he did about Best and Charlton and stuff like that. He's always remembered apparently as the guy who scored the goal which relegated Manchester United. But this is an erroneous fact. Apparently, had he not scored in the game, Man United would have been relegated anyway, apparently, when he was playing for Manchester City. So he goes down as the guy who relegated his old club, but that is incorrect. But yeah, sadly, he passed away at the age of, I believe it was 85, or 84, sorry. Yeah, Man United tried to pay tribute with a very moving tribute for their game with Brighton on Sunday, and then proceeded to put in a very Man United-esque performance and lost the game. So, well done to you, boys. So that brings us to the end of another week on the podcast. Thank you very much for listening. If it's your first time on it, if you've stumbled across the podcast today and you're thinking, "Oh, I'd like to find out more about Middlesbrough, Nottingham Forest, or Hull," get yourself subscribed to the channel. We do this each week where we break down each one of the games that Borough, Forest and Hull have played. Obviously, like we've just done there, there's a little bit of news just sprinkled in there about other stuff that's gone on in the football world. As we're still in January, we'll bring you all the transfer news that affects our clubs as well. But if football's not your thing, wrestling might be. We do a monthly wrestling roundup where we discuss the upcoming premium live event that will be going on that month. Obviously, we are in the month of January currently, which means the Royal Rumble is fast approaching. It is the most wonderful time of the year. So, Royal Rumble podcast will be coming your way very, very shortly. But if wrestling's not your thing, but American football might be. We also do a weekly American football podcast during the season. Laces out. We go through each of the week's games. Obviously, we're now into the postseason. Only 3 games left, ladies and gentlemen. 2 championship matchups, and then the main dance itself, the Super Bowl, to come. And then, if sports in general is not your bag, that man right there, the leader of the Cookie Cast podcast network, does the Darkest Timeline podcast each week, where he unloads, I suppose, the best way to say it. Gives you his thoughts, his feelings, his opinions, and that's what really matters, ladies and gentlemen. So, plenty for you to be going on with on the network. Thank you, as always, to these 2 gentlemen for joining me to go through the details of their team's ups and downs. Join us again next week where we'll do it all over again for you. In the meantime, take care of yourselves, keep an eye out for each other, and we will see you all next week. Tatty bye for now.
So there you go. What do you think to that? Matt, as always, you missed, but, we soldier on, we steer the ship. Other sorts of phrases for Matt wasn't here. Thank you for watching, thank you for listening, thank you for being here. Before you go, if you haven't already, please do consider like, share, subscribe and comment. Leave a review where you can leave a review, and check out the website, thecookiecast.com. There we've got social media links and an email button, and that way you can get in touch with us. Big thank you for watching, big thank you for being here. Until next time, I'm going to say bye, and I'll see you then.
Thank you for listening to these grumpy old men talk about football. If you've enjoyed this episode, please like, share and subscribe.